Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. 11 days and counting. That is when America will make its decision. And this election is close, according to all the polls. The latest poll out of the New York Times says that it is a dead heat between Trump and Harris. And of course, all the other polls indicate that this is going to be a very close election. Now, the interesting thing is that it is entirely possible that one of the candidates could win the popular vote and lose the electoral vote, or vice versa. And so the question becomes, how will we heal the wounds of this nation? Let's point out that even now, with some 30 million Americans having already voted, that things are up in the air. Well, the first thing is, when so many people vote in advance of an election, what happens if there's a major change or shift in the last week and a few days? That's a real question for us to tackle and consider. It used to be that everybody went to the polls on election day. Now it's all done by mail-in ballot or absentee ballot or overseas voting or, well, you name it. There are a million methods, and already Republicans and Democrats are lined up to challenge the results. That's right. Teams of lawyers hired by both the Democrats and the Republicans are ready to challenge the results of the election. So what happens on election night, November 5th? Do we have a result or not? And does it matter? Because what really matters is the acceptance of the result of the election. Now, I have to point out to you, we've learned several things. First of all, we now know that if Donald Trump wins the presidency, he has said that within seconds of his taking the oath of office on January 20th, he will dismiss Jack Smith and all the potential charges which he faces stemming from January 6th. It's very clear that Donald Trump is not only running for the presidency to make a difference, as he views it, in the life of Americans, but also to protect himself legally. And that's something we need to deal with. There are also the accusations being hurled back and forth. Is Donald Trump a fascist? Is Kamala Harris a socialist, or worse, a Marxist? It depends on who you listen to. And as to the question of differentiation based on issues, I believe there is a clear choice. Look, today, Kamala Harris is going to Texas. Now, theoretically, she has almost zero chance of picking up Texas electoral votes, but she is down there to make a point about reproductive rights. That's what she's going to talk about, and contrasting herself with Donald Trump. Remember Donald Trump, the man who pledged, "Elect me president," he said in 2016, "and I will put justices on the Supreme Court who will reverse Roe v. Wade." And he did. And there are implications, a ripple effect across the country. One of the things that I will be intrigued by is the question of how women vote in America. There is a huge gender gap, according to the polls, with Kamala Harris way ahead with women, but Donald Trump way ahead with men. So let me pose this to you as well. We now know that North Koreans are helping the Russians in the battle over Ukraine. Is anybody talking about the implications of that for our foreign policy? And we know that it is very likely, according to everything we hear, that before the election, Israel will retaliate against Iran for Iran firing 181 ballistic missiles into Israel. And of course, the rockets keep flying in the Middle East. And we now know that this too may be a critical issue. I was asked, Why in the town hall forum was Kamala Harris somewhat muted when it came to the question of Israel? And the answer is because of the Arab vote, Arab American voters who live in Michigan. And Michigan is a critical swing state. All of these issues reverberate with 11 days to go. Now, the other thing that interested me is I listened carefully to many of the talk shows. And the fact is, most people, when they are interviewed, members of Congress and others, don't want to answer direct questions. They veer off into their talking points, which is no surprise. That's the way campaigns are run. But with 11 days to go, and a real choice, not an echo, in this campaign, we better do some real thinking about how we're going to vote. What we do on November 5th, and by the way, what we're doing now as we vote early, will determine the course of our history, and perhaps the history of the world. That's how powerful the impact of an American election may be. Now, we are going to wait and see now for 11 days, because every day something new will happen. What the implications will be for the next president and for this country, well, that's going to be what's so interesting to watch. But it's not just a question of watching. It's a question of participating. Every eligible voter needs to get out and vote, no matter which side you're on, because in the end, this must be a collective decision which is accepted by the American people once the results are in. Remember the old poem, "The election is over, the result is known, the will of the people has been shown." Remember that? Will the will of the people be shown in this campaign? Well, for the next 11 days, all of us who worry about these things, well, we're going to be tied up in knots. And I'm not kidding. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, you can interact with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I want to hear from you, and thank you to all of you who do interact with me. And of course, my deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, who is the producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. This is John Rothman. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Around the Political World with John Rothman is proud to introduce our first sponsor. That's right. We have someone who loves what we do, and I have to tell you, I love what she does. Be Bold America is produced by KSQD, and of course, the person who leads us through these great discussions is none other than Jill Cody. She's an author, a radio personality, and she does one heck of a job of putting into focus major issues, from protecting democracy to our climate. Let me tell you, the topics on the podcast are serious. It's not for the faint of heart, but that's to say the show is for all of us. Be bold in America. In an election year, what can we do to increase discussion, debate, and the rest? I'll tell you what we can do. Listen to Jill Cody as she exposes all of us to the issues. You can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you like to get your shows. So this is John Rothman, delighted, pleased, thrilled to endorse Jill Cody's wonderful program, Be Bold, America.